The night was thick with anticipation. Every major network carried the event live, a rare, unfiltered debate between former President Donald Trump and legendary actor Denzel Washington. The producers had billed it as a discussion on leadership and courage, but everyone watching knew it was about something much deeper: truth versus image, reality versus ego. Denzel entered the CNN stage with the quiet authority that had defined his entire career. No entourage, no dramatics, just that steady, piercing gaze that could silence a room. Across from him, Trump swaggered in with his trademark grin and a wave to the crowd, soaking in the cheers and jeers like fuel. His red tie gleamed under the lights, a symbol of the power he refused to relinquish. The moderator greeted them politely, but tension was already thick enough to cut with a knife. Denzel sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, watching Trump's every move. Trump leaned into the mic before the first question was even asked. "You know, people always tell me Denzel's a great actor," he said, smirking. "But tonight, we'll see if he can handle real life." Laughter rippled through the audience, forced, uneasy. Denzel didn't smile. His eyes didn't move. When he finally spoke, his voice was low but carried through every corner of the studio. "Mr. Trump," he said calmly, "you've spent your whole life playing a role too, the hero in a story where you're the only one who matters." The crowd went silent. Trump chuckled, trying to shake it off. "I matter because I get things done. You read scripts, I write history." Denzel tilted his head slightly, eyes still locked. "History remembers those who build, not those who hide behind walls and lies." And just like that, the storm began to form. "Hide?" Trump barked, sitting up straight. "You think I hide? I took on the fake news, corrupt politicians, globalists, all of them. That's courage." Denzel didn't flinch. "Courage," he repeated softly. "Courage isn't about shouting over people or blaming everyone else when things go wrong. Courage is standing up when it costs you something." The audience stirred. Cameras zoomed in. The moderator tried to interrupt, but Trump leaned closer, his voice louder. "You Hollywood types think you're moral heroes because you make speeches about justice. You don't know what real pressure is." Denzel leaned in just as slowly, his tone quiet but cutting. "Real pressure is watching people suffer while you sit in a palace tweeting at 2 in the morning. Real courage is looking them in the eye and admitting your mistakes. Tell me, Mr. Trump, when was the last time you did that?" The air thickened. Even Trump's usual confidence wavered for a second. His eyes darted toward the crowd. He forced a smirk. "I don't make mistakes. That's why I win." Denzel nodded slightly, as if expecting that answer. "Then that's why you'll never lead," he said, voice calm but devastating. "Because leadership isn't about winning, it's about owning the truth." The studio gasped. The camera caught a bead of sweat rolling down Trump's temple. He adjusted his tie, leaned back, and muttered, "You sound just like the media." "No," Denzel said, his eyes burning with quiet conviction. "I sound like a man who's not afraid of you." The audience roared. And that's when chaos truly erupted. The crowd exploded into a storm of cheers and boos. Camera flashes, audience gasps, security guards edging forward, the entire studio had transformed into a battlefield. Denzel stayed still, unmoved, his calmness amplifying the chaos around him. Trump, on the other hand, thrived on it. He raised his hand for silence, his voice echoing across the stage. "You're afraid of strength, Denzel," he said. "You talk about truth, but Hollywood's been lying to America for decades. You play heroes, I make them." The audience booed, but Trump pushed through. "You live in your mansion, pretending to care about the people. I fought for them." Denzel finally leaned in, his expression unchanging. "You fought for yourself," he said. "And every time someone questioned you, you called them the enemy. You made this country hate itself. The silence that followed was heavy. For a brief second, Trump's eyes darted to the moderator, searching for help, for control. But none came. "Let me tell you something," Trump barked, voice trembling with anger. "I built the American dream. Without me, this country would have fallen apart." Denzel's gaze was steady, unrelenting. "Then why," he asked slowly, "does it look more broken than ever?" The audience's reaction was seismic. Phones went up. Clips began streaming live online. Hashtags like #DenzelDestroysTrump and #TheRealCoward started trending instantly. What no one knew was that this wasn't just a debate, it was about to become the most watched political confrontation in American television history. Within minutes of the exchange, social media platforms melted down. Fox News called Denzel unhinged, while MSNBC hailed him as the voice America needed. Twitter became a war zone. Celebrities chimed in. Athletes, journalists, even former political advisors, everyone had a take. Meanwhile, Denzel stayed silent. No interviews, no tweets. His team released only a short statement: "The truth doesn't need volume to be heard." Trump, however, couldn't resist. The next morning, he was on Truth Social posting in all caps. "Denzel is just another Hollywood hypocrite, talks bravery but hides behind cameras." Cable news went wild. Talk shows dissected every word. But behind the noise, something deeper was happening. For the first time, Denzel had managed to pierce through Trump's armor of chaos and turn his own tactics against him. In Los Angeles, fans gathered outside Denzel's Walk of Fame star, leaving notes that read, "Finally someone said it." In Washington, conservative pundits warned that Denzel was fueling division. But for millions watching at home, the truth was simpler: one man had finally stood up to Trump's bluster, and didn't blink. When reporters cornered Denzel outside a charity gala later that week, he simply smiled and said, "I said what needed to be said. The rest will play itself out." It was the calm before another storm. 3 days later, Trump appeared on Fox Nation for an exclusive interview. His tone was sharp, rehearsed, but there was something new in his eyes: irritation. "Denzel Washington thinks he's a philosopher," Trump began, smirking. "But all he did was insult half of America. He doesn't understand strength. He's never had to fight for his life like I have." The host nodded, feeding him lines. "Do you think he's jealous, Mr. President?" Trump grinned. "Of course. Everyone is. I built empires. He just makes movies about them." The audience clapped on cue. But outside the conservative bubble, it fell flat. The comments were filled with people posting clips of Denzel's calm composure from the debate, side by side with Trump's red-faced shouting. CNN analysts began calling it the moment the mask cracked. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed Trump's team was panicking. Fundraising numbers dipped. Public polls showed a 7-point drop in favorability, the sharpest since his 2021 scandals. That night, while Trump was still ranting on Truth Social, Denzel posted a single quote to his Instagram. "A coward's loudest weapon is his mouth." Within an hour, it had 2.8 million likes. The narrative had shifted, and Trump knew it. The days following Denzel's quiet Instagram post were unlike anything America had seen in years. News outlets played the clip on loop: Denzel's calm, surgical dismantling of Trump's bluster. Memes flooded the internet, late-night hosts replayed the moment frame by frame, and political analysts debated whether a Hollywood actor had just done what senators, journalists, and rivals couldn't: expose Trump's weakness on live TV. In the middle of it all, Trump doubled down. "Denzel is a nobody without me," he shouted at a rally in Ohio. "He should thank me, I made him relevant again." The crowd cheered, but there was less energy than before. The words didn't land like they used to. That same night, Denzel appeared at a charity gala in Washington, D.C. Reporters swarmed him, asking if he had a response to Trump's comments. He smiled, that same composed, grounded smile. When someone's drowning, he said softly, you don't yell at the water. You learn how to swim. It was a single sentence, but it hit the country like a lightning strike. Overnight, hashtags like hashtag Denzel Truths and hashtag Learn to Swim trended across every major platform. Even some former Trump supporters quietly reposted it. It wasn't just another celebrity jab, it was something different. A mirror held up to the nation. Behind the scenes, Trump's advisors were furious. He's winning the narrative, one aide whispered. Trump slammed his fist on the table. Then we take it back. I don't care how. The real war, the war of words, had only just begun. By the next week, America was split right down the middle. Fox ran a 24-hour marathon titled Denzel's Disrespect, Hollywood versus the People. Meanwhile, MSNBC aired The Courage to Speak Truth to Power. The contrast couldn't be sharper. In downtown Atlanta, murals appeared overnight, Denzel's silhouette facing off against Trump's, lightning between them, with the words, Truth versus Power, scrawled beneath. It wasn't about politics anymore, it had become symbolic, a national reflection of ego versus integrity. Trump, however, wasn't letting go. He began calling Denzel delusional D at rallies, mocking his Hollywood morality. But what truly shook him was when veterans organizations, long considered part of his base, publicly defended Denzel's remarks about courage. One retired Marine general said on CNN, "Courage is quiet. Real cowards are the ones who can't stop talking." That quote made front-page headlines the next morning. Trump's aides begged him to stop responding, but restraint was never his strength. He fired off another all-caps post. Denzel Washington is a fraud, he should stick to acting and leave real men to real jobs. Denzel didn't take the bait. Instead, he appeared in an interview with The Atlantic, where he said simply, "I'm not against any man. I'm against the noise that keeps good people blind." That line, "the noise that keeps good people blind," became a rallying cry. Protesters began chanting it outside Trump properties across the country. For the first time, Trump's empire wasn't just under scrutiny. It was under siege. By midweek, the tension was unbearable. Every cable show had their analysts on standby, every YouTube pundit had live streams counting down to Trump's next move. Then, on Thursday night, he broke. At a rally in Florida, Trump launched into a full 20-minute tirade. His face was red, his gestures sharp, his voice strained. "He called me a coward," Trump shouted. "Me? The man who took on the establishment, the deep state, the fake news. That's not cowardice, that's history." But this time, the crowd didn't erupt in applause. Instead, there was hesitation, a visible fracture in the sea of red hats. Cameras caught one young man lowering his sign. A woman in the front row shook her head and muttered, "He's losing it." Meanwhile, Denzel's team released a short film-style video on social media. It wasn't flashy, black background, his voice narrating over soft piano. Power without principle is chaos. Courage without conscience is vanity. And truth, when spoken at the right time, doesn't need to shout. In 24 hours, the clip hit 30 million views. Comment sections filled with phrases like "Denzel for President" and "the voice of reason." It wasn't just entertainment anymore, it was a cultural shift. Inside Mar-a-Lago, Trump threw his phone across the room. "He's trying to humiliate me," he yelled. His aide whispered, "Sir, he already did." By now, the confrontation had evolved beyond two men, it had become a referendum on leadership itself. Universities hosted debates titled "The Denzel Effect: Integrity versus Influence." Churches referenced his words in sermons about humility. The phrase, "You're the real coward," became shorthand for calling out hypocrisy in public office. Pollsters noted something startling. Among independent voters, Trump's approval rating dropped by 12 points, the sharpest decline since his impeachment trial. Meanwhile, Denzel's reputation skyrocketed. Brands, activists, even educators began quoting him. On 60 Minutes, Anderson Cooper asked him what he thought of the chaos that followed. Denzel replied quietly, "If truth causes chaos, maybe the lie was the real peace." That line alone dominated headlines for a week. In that moment, America saw him not as an actor, but as a moral voice in an age of noise. Trump's team scrambled to recover. He appeared on an emergency Fox interview, visibly exhausted, eyes dark. "People forget," he said, his tone slower now, "I gave them jobs. I made America great again. Denzel just gave them speeches." The interviewer nodded, but even his voice lacked conviction. The tide had turned. And for the first time, Trump, the master of chaos, was the one being drowned out by it. Weeks later, the storm began to settle. Denzel hadn't spoken publicly in days. Trump's fury had faded into silence. America was left with the echo of two voices, one loud, one calm, and the question of which one history would remember. Then, unexpectedly, Denzel appeared on a late-night talk show. The host asked the question everyone wanted answered, "Do you regret it? Calling him a coward?" Denzel leaned forward, his hands clasped, his eyes unflinching. "I didn't call him a coward," he said softly. "I called out cowardice. It just happened to fit him that night." The audience fell silent. The host nodded, stunned. As he left the stage, Denzel turned to the camera one last time. "This isn't about Trump," he said. "It's about us. We keep waiting for courage to lead, maybe it's time courage looked like us." That clip became the most shared video of the year. And in the end, when the noise faded, only one thing remained, the calm voice that cut through the storm, reminding a divided nation that real strength doesn't shout. It simply stands its ground. Low, cinematic tone, background fades to static, Denzel's voice echoes. Truth doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg to be heard, it just waits for the noise to die. Some men build walls to look powerful, others stand in front of them to prove what real strength is. Trump had his moment in the light, but the light doesn't last forever. When the storm clears, when the shouting fades, what's left is the weight of your words. Maybe that's why the truth hits harder than any headline. Because deep down, we all know who the real coward is. Beat pause, music swells. This isn't about Trump. It's not even about Denzel. It's about what kind of voice you listen to when the world turns loud. Fade out whisper. Because sometimes, silence says everything.